Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very exciting State of the Riverwood System with Justine Vogel. Welcome, everyone. We are just opening up, and so I'd like to say hello. It's snowing here, which is exciting. I don't know if it's snowing by you. If you want to, please pop your location in the Q&A and tell us where you are Zooming from today. We have a lot of people who are here, a lot of future residents who have registered to get an update on what's new at RiverWoods. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear where you are Zooming from. So we will be using the Q&A all the way through the presentation. So if you have questions, pop them in the Q&A. All right, so we've got Lincolnville, Maine, Key West, Florida. Oh, it's not snowing there, Arnie. Granville, Ohio does not have snow, has rain and mist, so thank you. Albuquerque, wow, we've got all the nice weather people popping in. Okay, we got Newmarket, hi Newmarket, Belfast, Maine. Fantastic place. Cape Cod, hello. More Newmarket, Durham, welcome Sarasota, Florida, welcome Venice, Florida, welcome Portsmouth and Lee and Barringer, New Hampshire. This is awesome to see so many people jumping in. We got somebody else from Bedford, from Greenland, Rockport, Mass, Cohasset, Mass. I know Cohasset very well. Stratham, Newburyport, oh, London, England. Hello, London, England, and West Newbury and Kensington. This is fantastic. It is.
Justine, did they was there a romper room in New England? I grew up in New Jersey. We had a romper room when I was a kid. Did you have that? They just reading off where everyone is from just makes me think of romper room.
As a matter of fact, one of our RiverWoods Manchester residents was one of the women on Romper Room.
No way.
Yes, well,
famous. All right.
Celebrities.
Nobody ever saw Justine. I'll tell you that. That's they might have seen Kathleen from Cohasset, but they never saw Justine from New Jersey. So
New Jersey. Well, and I haven't seen any New Jersey folks here. We got our own sick Maine, Exeter, very own Exeter, Wakefield. We got some. It is fantastic how connected we can be on Zoom. So my job here is welcome you, do a little housekeeping, and to butt in every now and then when Justine is talking, so, which I'm very good at. So you're on mute. You know that you're going to use that same Q&A button for any of the questions. Ask them anytime during the presentation, but we will have 15 minutes at the end where we'll cover all of your questions. As always, we want to know how we can improve our Zooming and our communication with you. So don't be shy with your comments and suggestions, because these forums are for you, our future residents, so that you are really knowledgeable about what's going on at RiverWoods. Okay, Justine, I think we can jump to it's 1:03. We have almost everyone here. So while we wait for the last few folks, just gonna, I think for many of you, this is gonna be a refresher because many of you have been with us for a while. But for some of you, this is new. This is your first State of the System meeting with Justine. So
welcome.
What?
Welcome.
Welcome, future residents. And just so you all know, we have 3 campuses: RiverWoods Exeter, RiverWoods Manchester, RiverWoods Durham. Justine is our CEO. She has worked here since before we opened the doors at RiverWoods. First as an accountant and worked her way up, and she has been CEO since 2007. So she's been through a lot of change. She became CEO of the group in 2012. She has an accounting background. and is currently on the board of directors for our national organization.
I'm moving forward, Kathleen, because it's
Okay.
getting boring. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah, then.
Okay. All right. So this presentation is very similar to the one that we have done for the residents, which was just about a week ago. So we try to get our future residents as updated information as possible. We do this once a year. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Justine.
All right, thank you. So as Kathleen said, many folks may have heard some of this in the past and heard about, and you may understand the totality of RiverWoods, but I think it's important to just refresh and to provide a little information for those of you who may be new to us. So RiverWoods, all of our communities, we're part of a system, and that system is called the RiverWoods Group. We call it a family of communities. And the RiverWoods Group is governed by a board of trustees. The RiverWoods Group has two focuses. Focus number one is to help the existing communities thrive, to do all that it can to keep us moving forward and thinking about the future and how to serve our current residents best and our next residents best. The second part of the RiverWoods Group is to think about ways to serve older adults that may not fit within our existing CCRCs. So two purposes for the RiverWoods Group. There's also a board of trustees that governs the existing communities. So one board governs RiverWoods Exeter, RiverWoods Manchester, and RiverWoods Durham. And they are not an operating board, they are not a management team, they are a governing board. So they're a policy setting board. And their work is to govern the three existing communities: RiverWoods Exeter, which opened in 1994, the Woods campus in 94, the Ridge campus in 2004, the Boulders in 2010. RiverWoods Manchester joined us in 2016, though that community actually opened in 1991. And RiverWoods Durham, which opened in 2019. The only other thing I would note on this slide is you see a little box off to the right that is titled SPE-STE. And we always put this on our organizational chart because it stands for someplace else or something else. We are, as an organization, always thinking about how else can we serve older adults in some other some other place, or in some other way. And we don't have anything top of mind right now, but it's just sort of a reminder that there's always the possibility that we'll come up with a new idea in ways to serve folks who may never want to live in a CCRC. So just a quick refresher on our communities as they stand, just give you a sense of size and scope. RiverWoods Exeter is our biggest campus, biggest community with 3 campuses, about 620 residents and 440 plus staff. And RiverWoods Manchester is our smallest campus that has 216 residents and about 160 staff. And RiverWoods Durham, our newest campus, is the middle in terms of size, about just under 280 residents and just over 200 staff members. So each of those communities is part of the RiverWoods Group system, and each of those communities pays into this system. They pay a management fee, and they pay on occasion, when available, if there are assets on their balance sheet that are above a predetermined amount and financial performance that is above a predetermined amount, they may move available assets to the system to allow us to invest in other options. That might be for the CCRC system in and of itself, or it may be a way to serve other older adults. The majority of what goes into TRWG, though, is management fee, and that pays for the staff that is at TRWG, which is the RiverWoods Group. So we've centralized certain services to be more efficient and more financially efficient and more operationally efficient. And those fall under the categories of finance, technology, quality, marketing, and human resources. the vast majority of our TRWG, RiverWoods Group staff, and contractors are focused on, we call today, the existing communities. We sort of use the acronym of today. That's where we're focused on our existing communities and our existing residents. The vast majority of the folks in human resources and in IT and in finance and in marketing and quality are focused there every day. And then amongst our leadership team, some folks, the VP of Quality and the VP of Human Resources and VP of Operations and our Director of Sales, I would say about 90% of their time is focused on our existing communities. People like Kathleen and our CFO and our CIO and our Director of Administration, they are focused on, maybe a little bit less on today, about 80% on today, and a little bit more on future and other options. And then the smallest circle on the right would be me. And right now, today, and because of all that our industry has gone through over the course of the last 3 years, about 3/4 of my time is focused on the existing communities. At some point in the future, when the world settles down, my guess would be a little bit less of my time would be on the existing communities, but and a little bit more on the future. So
can I just jump in and
sure.
I do want to mention that in the 3 independent communities, Manchester, Durham, and Exeter, they all have their own balance sheet. So they are all have separate.
Yep. Why don't I take this? We'll let an accountant talk about the financial.
I can't believe you missed the balance sheet. So.
Yeah. So each community is its own legal entity. Each community has its own financial performance. Each community has its own debt mortgage for building their campuses, their communities. We are governed collectively, but they have distinct financial performance, and they're governed collectively, and they are drawn together by being a part of the system. So what we found over the course of the last 6 or 7 years is that there are certain things that we can be more efficient and save money and be better at if we do them together. So for example, instead of having one person in accounting pay the bills for Manchester and one person for Durham and one person for Exeter, we have 2 people instead of 3. Instead of having each organization have its own health insurance plan. Initially, we combined health insurance for our employees, and then in the last year, we went to a self-insured plan. So there are ways that we can benefit financially by being part of a system, but we keep the actual financial performance is distinct, and the audited financials are on a consolidated basis, but there's also individual performance is shown. Anything else, Kathleen? You want me to talk accountant? I can do that all day.
No. I think control your enthusiasm.
Okay. All right.
See if anyone has. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I probably just put 156 participants to sleep with that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the world we live in today. One of my favorite quotes is that the first job of a leader is to define reality. And when we think about the environment we live in and work in and serve in the last 3 years, it's changed. And a part of our strategy is an ongoing need to adapt. So in this environment, there is an increase in the number of older adults, our customer, and those needs are changing. There is a decrease, and I'll talk a little bit about this, in the potential team members. Right? So the number of people who are able to work in our environment is decreasing. The amount of competition is changing. It may be from technology, it may be from other like-kind communities, it may be from more care-based communities. COVID has obviously kind of changed everything in terms of the way our world works. So things were a little crazy in 2020, certainly more back to normal now, but the COVID impacts, you see it if you go to a restaurant, you see it if you go to a store. It has changed the way the world operates. The other thing that is changing now, and I think for the better, is collaboration opportunities. So I will say, Kathleen mentioned I started in 1994. Before we opened, we did everything ourselves. And now more and more RiverWoods, but also others in our industries, seek to find others to collaborate with, so we can have the people who are best at it, whatever that may be, doing the work, so we don't have to do everything ourselves. So just quickly buzz through a little bit more on reality. There are 10,000 people a day turning 77, the oldest baby boomers, where there are a lot of you, and you have a lot of opportunities, and we are looking to be able to serve folks within our CCRCs, and as we talked about with the system, maybe find some other ways to serve folks who this isn't the way of life they would choose. On the other side of demographics, there are very few people to actually work, right? The number of people who are sort of standard working age, 20 to 64, is decreasing. It's decreasing every year. And you honestly cannot look at a newspaper or watch the news without seeing headlines about worker shortages, primarily in the healthcare environment, but also transportation and social assistance and hospitality and food, which happen to be 4 or 5 of the biggest things that we do in the course of our communities. So those are the challenges that we face. And in the old supply and demand curve, if you took economics, when supply is down and demand is up, price goes up. And we certainly see that in the healthcare wage sector. So those are the things we focus on. If you ask me, and Kathleen did ask me, what keeps you up at night? That's certainly one. But I also think about the big picture challenges, and not just challenges, but also opportunities, because I am a committed optimist. So every challenge brings with it an opportunity. And one of the things we think about all the time is, are we meeting our mission, right? The intent of our founding and our founders. Are we doing all that we can and we should, and are we doing it the right way? So it protects the future, plans for the future, but also protects our core, our current residents. We think about demographics, and I just, spoke to those from a resident standpoint and an employee standpoint, certainly changing. Disruptive technology, there's all kinds of things happening, and you can think of disruptive technology as a challenge, but from my perspective, it's a huge opportunity. What is going to come into our world, whether that's finally a pill for Alzheimer's, whether that is a very gene-centered medicine, whether it's robots for vacuuming and lawn mowing and meal serving, right? So there are all kinds of things that are disruptive, but maybe for the better, and help us as a society and help us as an organization. The economic environment, I won't belabor that. I think we all are living in an interesting investment environment, and an interesting inflation environment, and an interesting real estate environment. One benefit from being around for almost 30 years now is we've been through an awful lot of this before, and we've weathered some pretty tough storms and come out on top, because in a difficult or challenging economic environment, when you take smart risks, you often do better than folks who stay steady. So opportunity and a challenge. And then the last one is our charitable status. One of the things I always think about is, hey, we are a charitable 501c3 charitable not-for-profit, and we're responsible for serving a senior population. And we do that through benevolence. We do that through the fact that some of our apartments subsidize, our larger units subsidize our smaller apartments. But it's always central to our thinking, how are we doing all that we can? Before I get into the actual strategy, just a reminder, this is our purpose statement. We're committed to creating community and peace of mind for each other. Community and peace of mind are the terms we have used for 28 years. But I really like this last sentence. Together, we make life better. That is why our 850 plus employees come to work every day. I think that's an awful lot of that is why our 1,000+ residents come to live here. We want to make life better for ourselves. We want to make life better for one another, and we do that together. So let me jump from there into our strategy, and I'll hit on a little bit of the history, but also just the big topics. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but happy to answer any questions.
And I think just jumping in, one of the reasons we start with the purpose and we start with the structure is so that all of our future residents understand we are a not-for-profit charitable organization, a family of communities. We've grown more quickly than any of our like communities in New England, and we are committed to furthering this purpose and fulfilling our founder's dream in a lot of different ways. One benefit you have as future residents is to explain to other people in the environment out there what a CCRC is, because we are different. A lot of people don't understand that. So it may be repetitive, but I think it's always good to kind of stand back and realize how powerful it is to be part of a not-for-profit. Okay.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about our strategy. So the CCRC board.
A tiny bit more, that would be great.
Say that again. Speak up. Okay. The CCRC board sets our strategic plan. So that's their work. That's really the work of a governing board. And the strategic plan is strategy, right? It's not an operational work plan. That's something, the operational work plans are what our leadership teams do every year. So over the course of the last 6 or 8 months, the board has developed strategic initiatives, and I'll just run through those. The first is focused on technology, right? Technology that enhances quality of life and addresses our business reality. The second is on culture, to be inclusive to all members of our community. The third is staff, right? Allowing us to focus on staff in a way that differentiates us as an employer in a community. The fourth is on programs and partnerships. We talked about before, the idea for collaboration, expanding physical and cognitive WellSpan. And think of WellSpan as, if lifespan is the number of years in your life, your WellSpan is the number of years you live well and healthy, or the number of years you want to live that way. And then the last part, and certainly not the least, and probably the most important, is just getting the regular things right. That is, in a normal environment 5-10 years ago, we might never talk about getting the regular things right in a strategic plan. But in the course of a rapidly changing environment, getting the regular things right is super important. I'll just kind of buzz through each of these major topics. In terms of technology, we have a subtopic of business operations that is about data analytics. It's about not doing things in a manual way, having as much as we can be automated so that we can need fewer people and we can save money. I mean, that's the technology of business operations really is about better information to make better decisions in a faster way with fewer people so we can save money. Resident engagement is around audio-visual systems, reliable sound systems, consistent live streaming. For example, if we had live streaming that worked really well, in addition to having these special events for you all, you might be able to live stream into educational sessions we have on campus so that you can feel part of the community before you even move in. Lots of input from our residents about our cell coverage in our Exeter community. While it is a lovely place, it's in a little bit of a ditch without great cell coverage, so how we can enhance that. We also think about, there are changes in how virtual reality is occurring. And that may help our folks who are in our supported living environment. It may also help people connect with family members. We have a board member who shared with me her son-in-law works for Liberty Mutual, and he connects in meetings with folks who work with him in Ireland, and it feels as if they're in the same room because they do it via virtual reality. So who knows how community is going to be delivered in 20 years, but we need to pay attention. In terms of sustainability, we think about environmental sustainability. So that is solar, that is doing environmental and utility audits for our campuses, and fitness and wellness. There is technology equipment that helps people with their gait and individualized fitness plans. So everything that we can do to help our residents stay healthier longer and increase their well span instead of just their lifespan is a positive. The next focus is on culture. That's the board and resident engagement, as well as our staff. We'll be focusing more on what we call JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's within our resident population, within our board population, and with our teams. We've started some trainings on that for our staff teams. It's a look to the external community, how each of our communities, so RiverWoods Exeter obviously is in the Exeter community, and Durham, and Manchester, how do they play a role in the larger community there? And then the fourth part of culture is you all, future residents. How do we ensure that you feel as much a part of our communities as you can before you move in, so that you know what you're getting, you know who we are, you're comfortable with that, warts and all. You know, we're a communities of humans, so nothing is perfect. I'll tell you that. I've 28 years. I've never had a day that was perfect, but it's a really great place. And so what we want you to know is as much as we can share every day. And so how do we do that? And I know Kathleen and her team have worked on these, a great array and agendas of programs for you all to be connected to the community. The next focus, and a very, very, very important one, is a focus on staff. I did notice just quickly that there are some questions about staffing, and I'll address those at the end. But staffing is the biggest challenge right now. And one of our strategies is to get residents more involved in recruitment, more involved in retention, in onboarding, a mentoring role, because if you remember the purpose statement, right? Together we make lives better. And our residents have a role to play in that also. As a matter of fact, we were walking through this with our resident council in Exeter a few weeks ago, and their response was, how do we do more? How do we connect with the residents, with the staff in a better way? And one of the ideas we haven't rolled out quite yet, but is to get residents involved in the interview process. Because hey, if you're a nurse or a nursing assistant and you interview with us and you meet someone whose spouse is living in a supported living environment, or that person follows up with you, why are you going to take a different job? You're going to understand that you make a difference here. So I won't belabor that point too much, but focus on staff is the resident involvement. It's about flexible benefits. One of the things we're learning, one of our leaders is a younger millennial. I guess she might be a middle millennial, but they all seem younger to me. But she really pounds us on the fact that people want different things these days. And we see that in our employee engagement scores, what they want in terms of benefit, what they want in terms of learning and growth. And then really focusing on how do we develop better leaders? How do we help people learn to be and learn that skill of leading? It's natural for some, it's unnatural for others, but it's a skill that can be learned if it's honed. In terms of brain health and proactive wellness programming, one of the things that stands out to me is a survey that was done by AgeWave that in the height of the pandemic, they did a survey about what, for people 55 and above, what was their biggest concern, and dementia, Alzheimer's was the number one by far. This was at a time when COVID-19 was killing people left and right, and people were still most afraid to have Alzheimer's. So we certainly hear that from our existing residents and from you all, how we can be proactive in brain health, what we can do about that, what kind of programming we can add or enhance for our memory support residents, for folks who are suffering from cognitive loss. How do we help them sustain the best way of life? Focusing on the 7 dimensions of wellness. And then we also think about home care, which may never be outside of our doors, but how do we enhance that within our communities and then potentially long-term outside our doors? Just a quick, the 7 dimensions of health, of wellness, focus on physical, social, cognitive, emotional, avocational or vocational, environmental, and spiritual. And as we think about programming, how do we help people know? We now within our communities, we touch on all of these things, but how do we align them for people and help them navigate through? How am I focusing too much on physical and not enough on social, or too much on social and not enough on cognitive? I give people the best chance to stay as well as possible for their whole lifetime, and that's WellSpan. And then the last focus is getting the regular things right. So we engaged with our resident populations in Exeter, Durham, and Manchester. They set up task forces to focus on developing their version of a strategic plan and where do we need to focus, and super clear, and all things that we really agreed with on operational areas that are need tuning up. Then that runs the gamut from in our Boulders campus in Exeter. It's about 10 years old now, and it's ready for a refresh, to cell towers, to some of the AV equipment, we've had leadership changes in our Durham community. Our executive director was promoted to our vice president of operations. And in the course of that promotion, 3 other changes in leaders occurred because it happened exactly the way you would hope. One person got promoted, and then another internal candidate was promoted to that role, and another internal candidate was promoted to the next role, and so on. And so our community life director became the executive director, and our dining room manager became the community life director, and one of our dining leaders became the dining room manager. And that's exactly what you would want in community in terms of people moving up, but they're all still new leaders, right? So getting leadership consistency, and in Durham, for sure. In Exeter, we've also had some changes. So we're establishing consistency amongst the leadership teams as part of getting the regular things right, and just, getting back to basics. So how do we do all this? Well, the on-site teams, as we talked about, there are 850 or so people who work within our communities. They focus on it. The TRWG employees are, most of whom are multi-community based. So there are, for example, our IT technicians. They may spend, one of the folks may spend most of his time at our Manchester community, but if he needs to help out in Exeter or Durham, then that's where he'll go. So our on-site community teams, our TRWG teams, and then also our residents. As I mentioned with the staff part, they'll be a huge part of the recruitment, retention, mentoring, education. They're also a huge part of establishing and bringing the culture forward. So as we think about strategy, and we think about what does this mean for the future? Obviously, the strategic plan has an impact on our operating costs. not nearly as much as today in terms of inflation or the employee market and the resident market. So all of these factors impact our operating costs. And then the other thing that people often don't think of is that there's a cost of not doing things. And so there's a cost of moving forward and maybe investing in technology or investing in a new program. But there's also a cost of not doing it. There's opportunity cost. What do you lose? What do we lose in terms of benefits we could provide our residents? What do we lose in terms of learning? What do we lose in terms of employees that maybe we don't attract if we don't have certain technology? So I will wrap it up and move to questions with these thoughts. Over the course of time, we focus on now a lot. Most of our days are focused, 90% is focused on what's going on today and the operational ins and outs. But what you benefit from as being a future resident in an organization that is coming on 30 years old and has learned a lot from the past. We've learned, for example, in terms of technology, in our Manchester campus, we have smart apartments. And those smart apartments are being tested out there in a few of the apartments. Those are, Alexa-based technology, so that in the future, what we would anticipate is you can walk in and say, Alexa, turn my lights on. Or if you wake up at night and, at my age, this is what happens. You wake up at night, need to use the bathroom. You can say, Alexa, turn the hallway light on. You can say, Alexa, turn the heat up, or Alexa, turn the heat down. Or when you're maybe going to your lake house for a week, you can say, Alexa, turn my away mode on. So smart apartments are an opportunity to save money. They're an opportunity to save energy. They're an opportunity to improve safety. You can say, Alexa, what's on the calendar today? Alexa, what's for dinner tonight? Decide whether you want lunch or dinner. There's all kinds of opportunity there. And so we're testing that out in Manchester, and that's something I think we'll bring forward. In terms of dining and healthcare design, we made a pretty significant change in how we set up dining in our Durham campus as compared to what we had in Exeter and in Manchester, setting it up with a bistro type environment, opportunity for some grab and go, opportunity for a little bit more casual environment. And that has been so well received that within our Exeter community, as we redid our Ridge campus, that's opening with that same look now. And that actually is I think it's grand opening on Monday. So it's been a real work in progress, but we learned from that. In Durham, we built our health center, our supported living environment in a small house environment. And we're learning from that as we redesign healthcare in Exeter, and will in the future redesign it for Manchester. And then, if you go to our Wayback Machine, there was a time, I can remember a time when fitness classes were something people paid for, right? And sometimes people didn't sign up for them because they didn't want to pay. And what we realized is if we want to encourage people to be as active and as fit as possible, then that's the type of thing that should be part of our overall fee structure. So those fitness programs have grown from having, one outside contractor half a day a week to having teams of fitness people really focused on personal fitness for our residents. So everything that we think about, and for our future residents, we're trying to learn today to do a better job for you in the future, and trying to learn from you about what it is you might want. And I know you all talk with your sales counselors and with Kathleen about that, and that helps us in terms of developing programming for the future. So with that, I will open it up to questions. I think
I have I'm just monitoring some of the questions, so let me please feel free to jump in and throw your questions in the Q&A. One question that we have right now is talk a little bit about staffing concerns at Riverwoods and how they're being addressed.
Yep.
That's what's keeping us up at night, I know.
Yeah, sure. So very structurally, we centralized healthcare and recruitment. We have moved a bunch of sort of our marketing jobs as strongly as we market apartments now. There are still challenges. There will be challenges in dining. And I think the question actually talks about dining. One of the challenges is getting the right staff. The other challenge is that COVID impacts us occasionally and has us shut down dining for short periods of time when our dining staff is impacted. That happened after Christmas this year. What I will tell you is we're not alone, and we don't have a magic bullet in terms of how to recruit better. But I do think that one of our strategies for this year is to focus as many of our resources on recruitment and retention as possible. And the resource we haven't been using enough is our residents. So, I talked a little bit about, hey, if a healthcare resident family member gives a nurse a call after she's interviewed, that might be the difference maker. I think that'll be the same thing if we have residents involved in an interview process for young dining staff, whether that's servers or cooks. So it's I don't have the magic answer for you, and I will tell you that we have fewer open positions today than we did last December, but we have more open positions in healthcare than we did last December. So that's an incredibly challenging environment right now.
I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna jump around because I see some people have similar questions. We have a number of questions about where we stand with the new consolidated healthcare center in Exeter, which is very much top of mind. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, so we are in the process of seeking zoning board approval to basically we need a variance we're asking the town of Exeter to consider our 3 parcels, even though RiverWoods Exeter is one legal entity. We have 3 parcels of land, one that the wood sits on, one that the ridge sits on, and one that the boulder sits on. So we need a variance from the town because we're in a residential zone. So to qualify as a congregate housing senior living community, we need healthcare. We're asking the town for a variance to allow that to be a centralized location instead of at each campus. So one of the challenges for us is that the zoning board has one fewer member. They actually had a member of the zoning board pass away in the fall. And many of the alternates have some kind of conflict with us. They may be our resident or their neighbor. So having the zoning board be able to seat enough people to hear our case has been a challenge, but we move forward with that. Our timeline is to get through the regulatory process by this summer and complete design by next spring and be hopefully in the ground by the spring, early summer of 2024.
I love the comment of Marjorie, who said her Echo Dot responded every
Sorry,
time. Justine said Alexa. So we know all of you have a lot of technology here too.
Yep.
So, and we will keep our future residents updated. We do have the connector, our newsletter that goes out. And as we make progress on the new healthcare building, we will keep you up to date. Just a lot has to be done ahead of time. Got a great question here. Once I'm a resident, will I still be able to be a track and field official?
Absolutely.
Officiate middle school, high school, NCAA and USA track and field. Absolutely. It involves travel. Once you are a resident, you can do whatever you like and that's one of the benefits of being here, is that you don't have to worry about shoveling snow or maintaining your home. Go anywhere you would like. Have a question about what are some of the specific connections between Exeter, Manchester, and Durham campuses that benefit residents. And that could be an entire hour of presentation. I'll let Justine answer it, but just I want to share that we as senior leaders are problem solving together across all three campuses. One of the biggest experiences with that was during COVID. And we had one brain trust that was solving for all three communities, so that the residents get the best answer. And also we're negotiating costs, as Justine said, negotiating insurance. We are testing innovations in one campus, like we have a dining robot in Durham that we may use other places. We have the smart apartment in Manchester we'll use in other places. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'll let
Yeah, no, I think, you hit exactly on it, Kathleen. So from a business perspective, there's efficiency. There's also sort of the insurance policy. So when a community has, we're in a period of the Great Resignation, right? So when people leave, we have the insurance component of our leadership team at the RiverWoods Group being able to provide some backup, or it may come from one campus to another. So, for example, our RiverWoods Durham Executive Director, Kim Gaskell, who opened the community, was promoted to Vice President of Operations. But when we had turnover at our Executive Director in Exeter, she's been filling that on an interim basis since August, and we're just starting to actually look for a permanent Executive Director now. So you have that kind of insurance and backbone. But like Kathleen said, I think one of the cool things is being able to test things out in one spot. The smart apartments are a great idea. The dining robot is another. In electric charging, electric car charging, the dining directors actually meet every week to talk about menu planning. There was a period of time when, if you go to Hannaford or your supermarket, you'll notice there are fewer things on the shelves these days, right? So we experience that too. When you think you want to buy chicken breasts and only thighs are available, our leaders, not just at TRWG, but at all of the communities, they have 2 other people to talk to. They have their compatriot to talk to say, how have you adjusted? When we will implement landscaping robots in the next year, and we'll try that out at one campus. Housekeeping, vacuuming robots, we'll try that out at one campus and bring it to the other. So I think that's a huge benefit. And I also think we're just now starting. We would have started 3 years ago, but we get a little bit hamstrung by COVID waves, but being able to bring our resident councils together and other resident committees together from each community to talk about what's on their mind and how we best move forward together.
Okay, we have a couple of questions here on what about involving residents in a part-time staffing role. Can we, that's one question. What about allowing residents to work at jobs for a salary or reduction of monthly service fees? So,
I'd never say never. The challenge there, think about it, like, what if we had to fire you? That would be a tough one. So that would be a challenge. But the benefit is it does keep people intellectually involved. It keeps people committed and connected to the community. We did have residents volunteer in a number of roles in the tough times. So I'd never say never. I'm going to say not yet on that one, unless you're a nurse who wants to work 11 to 7, in which case, come on back.
So never say never. We do have a question about, will independent living residents be commingled with the healthcare center residents? So maybe we want to do a refresher on
So,
what our concept is,
we're talking about in Exeter then?
Exeter, yeah.
Yeah, so what we are proposing in Exeter is that we will build a centralized healthcare building that will be most likely on the land parcel that is the Ridge right now. So we have two locations in mind. One is connected to the Ridge campus, and one is actually right where my office and Kathleen's office is, our campus crossing building. And that is certainly the more appealing location to our residents. It's most central. So it would
It's
be
shocking to us because we
distinct.
really thought they wanted it to be connected. but-
Right, right. I think they maybe just want us out of the, out of the campus, but
Understandable.
so it would be a distinct building.
Yeah, I also have a question about, and this is early, but do we have an idea of what the monthly service fee increase is going to be, which we haven't even started a budget process yet.
Yeah. So I can't tell you an answer on that. I can't give you a number. I can tell you that there will be one, and it will probably be higher than it has been in the past. But I'll also tell you that we will do everything we can to find other ways to offset increasing costs. But with wages and benefits being 60 to 65% of our expenses, there's no denying those are going up. There's a reason that Social Security went up 8.7% this year. We're in an inflationary environment. So I can't tell you what that will be today. It would be a shot in the dark. We're just starting our budget process, but I can tell you that we feel inflationary pressure on wages, and that's a big part of our environment. When that happens, and it has in the past, we actively seek other ways to save money and to be more efficient. So it will be more expensive to live here. I will tell you, I'm very confident it would be more expensive to live in your own home if you needed healthcare. We have multiple staff members of our leaders who are dealing with aging parents and trying to find caregivers in their home. It's wildly expensive and wildly unreliable. For us, we at least have the ability to be more efficient in that operation. So May 1st is when that will be a solid number.
Yeah, we do spend a full 4 months working on our budget, and we've already had initial conversations about that. So we are all trimming our budget so that we can be as reasonable as possible. I had a question earlier, 2 questions. One is, are we a not-for-profit or a nonprofit? We are a not-for-profit.
They are the same thing. I know the question says they're not the same thing, but it's terminology. So we're a charitable not-for-profit. And the way to think about it is, it's not that we would never make a profit. It's not what it means. It means you don't exist to make a profit. We exist. And if you do, it is to be reinvested essentially in your mission. And that's what we are.
I got a question about the number. We don't split staff by campus in Exeter, but the Woods has 201 homes. The Ridge has 81 apartments and 11 cottages, and the Boulders has 76 homes and 24 cottages. So, and we have about, they're all occupied, and they, with a percentage of singles and married couples. Another question is, have we thought, which I know we have we thought about having a child care center on each campus?
Our residents have talked about that in terms of when they put together their strategic plan thoughts on how to benefit our staff. it isn't the kind of thing that our staff has tops of the list. And I'm not sure if that's because of the age of the staff we have, or if it is because our folks aren't necessarily paying for childcare. Certainly it's an option, and we will look at all things. But it's not one of the sort of top 5 that is on the staff list. Interesting, pet insurance is higher up than childcare.
Okay, we are closing in on 2:00. This has gone beautifully because we only have 2 questions left. So if you have questions, this is your chance to pop them in the Q&A. We live for questions, so we'll stay as long as you have questions. One question I believe I know the answer to, which is, yes, residents of RiverWoods Durham can use a pool at, no?
Well, that's not true.
That's not true. All right, thank you.
So the question is, can residents of RiverWoods Durham use the swimming pool at RiverWoods Exeter? We pre-COVID, we had that conversation with our Exeter residents, and the desire was to not have that opened up. I would say that we are open to revisiting that with our Exeter residents, but this is their home, and that's not something we'll direct as a management team. So it's a conversation we'll have with the resident council. And actually it would be kind of better if the RiverWoods Durham Council had it with the RiverWoods Exeter Council and just left us out of it. But if that ever gets to be the case, we will provide transportation. But we do have, Durham has access within Durham, I think at the UNH pool. So there is pool access, just not here.
And it's a beautiful pool and close by. Okay, another question, how extensive are environmental concerns at RiverWoods in the buildings and day-to-day operations, solar panels, native plantings, electric induction stoves, hot water, etc.?
Yeah, well, it's certainly in our strategic thinking moving forward. Currently in Exeter, we have some solar panels. We have some native plantings. We generally will look at not just the environmental impacts of these things, but also payback. So we're always trying to balance, is this a good investment for the environment? Is it a good investment financially? Is it what our residents really want to do? We do have really strong thoughts from some residents about this. And it's a goal for the future to have more solar. We are investing more in solar now. We've engaged a consultant to help us design what we can do. The challenge is we use so much energy that solar, we just don't have enough sunshine to be able to do that completely solar and be off the grid. But we're focused there. And some of that is because the rising utility prices. I have to admit, I'm believe in being sustainable for the environment, but the higher prices for utilities do help you invest more a little quickly. So I think more will come in the future.
While we're on our last few questions, Justine, would you go to the next slide? Because one of the goals we have is to have our future residents very involved in our exciting programming. And we have Ashton Applewhite, who is the expert on ageism. She's phenomenal. And I want to make sure everybody has a chance to see this and register for this because it is going to be fantastic. While we do that, we've a few more questions. So pop your questions in. Penny has a question. Is there any thought to giving future residents some sense of where they are on the wait list? Yes, we do that on a regular basis. It should be at least yearly. You should be working with your sales counselor to get a sense of exactly where you are. Obviously, we can't say exact, this is when you're going to be moving in, but we do give you a sense of when, and we try to prepare people in advance. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I did just connected to that. I noticed in the Q&A related to the health center question, I think there was a question about the advance the independent apartments that may come as a
Yes,
part of it.
yes,
And
that,
so
thank you.
just
And I
large,
think that was referring to so if you can answer that, do you want me to
Yeah.
rephrase the question?
no, what I would say for folks is, obviously, what we're thinking about in Exeter is it's a multi-step process. It's centralized healthcare, and then the space where the existing healthcare centers are at the Woods, Ridge, and Boulders would be transformed into independent living. So healthcare has to be approved first and then built. So assume probably 3 years from now, and then building for independent living. So we're probably looking at 4 to 5 years until any new units of independent living would be available.
Thank you for following up on that. We have a bunch more questions. Let's see. I'm gonna go to how do we keep our visionary leaders? I think the people that are here because of we believe in the mission and the not-for-profit status. But it is a, it is something that you have to have a passion for. Justine, I don't know if you want to answer anything.
Well, I threaten them too, if they.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
go ahead,
Yeah,
Rose.
it's very scary, especially when their voice gets quieter.
I think Kathleen hit it right on the head. We are, as a team, we are very committed to that purpose statement, together we make lives better. Not very many people get the opportunity to do a job where if you do it well, you make lives better. And that's for our 850 plus staff members, our team members, and our 1,100 or so residents. And it's a pretty good thing. But it is far more of a challenge today than it has been at many levels, because there are just a ton of opportunities. I say this in every resident presentation. Any staff member in the audience can get another job tomorrow and make more money. I'm sure of it. And that's just the environment we live in today. I think you're on
Sorry
mute.
about that. We have a question about the cultural programming, and again, that would take probably another hour to review. We have I think 70 individual committees in Exeter. We have probably 20 in Durham. Everything from bridge to dance to trails to all different kinds of things. So if you want to reach out specifically to your salesperson, we can give you more robust answer to that. Question about our memory care program, and do we offer a day program for individuals who need memory care but are still able to reside in their independent homes? So right now we don't offer a memory care program. We have a very unique situation. For any of you who may know somebody who needs memory care, RiverWoods Durham has a direct admit opportunity, just a few, for those who need assisted living or memory care. So if you do know somebody who has an interest, they can move directly in to RiverWoods Durham. So please reach out to me, Sherry Young, or your salesperson for that. And we have pretty robust memory care program. Again, we use technology like IN2L and music and memory. So we have a fairly robust program. So I'm just kind of wrapping things up. We will have a recording of the presentation available to anybody that registered to this. Composting, I do believe we compost our food waste.
I don't know the answer to that. I was going to say, I don't think we do. So we'll get back to you on that one, Ed.
We'll find out. Ed and get back to you. We do grow our own garlic and we grow a lot of our own herbs. Thank you, Carolyn, for the shout out. I do have a podcast called Seniority Authority. So if you know anyone who wants to get smarter about growing older, please listen to the podcast.
Or watch her on PBS.
Exactly. Thanks, Judy, for participating. Thank you, everyone. I think we got through all of the questions. And it is like 2:01, I believe, 2:05. So thank you, everyone, for participating. Always send us input as to how we can do a better job. And reach out to me, your sales counselor, if you have other things we didn't cover. And I hope to see you January 24th in the presentation with Ashton Applewhite. I'd like to thank Justine for taking all the time and filling us in on the strategic plan.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.